Good morning. Welcome to the January Academic Advising Seminar. Our topic today is going to talk about probation resources and career counseling. And I also want you to keep in mind that we have a quick turnaround for our February session. It's February 14th, and we're going to be talking about creating good Y-degree plans, working with students, and some of the tips that Laura Dix can share with us. There are materials at the back of the room if you have not picked them up yet. If you know of a colleague or somebody who missed this session, all the sessions are recorded, and even the sessions that were from last year are archived on the Academic Advising Guide on our faculty and professional development resources. All the materials, letters, all that information is available for you or for your colleagues or for anybody in your college that you'd like to share the information with. At the end of the session, we'd love for you to give us some evaluations about what the content was today, and even if you think about what you might like for next year, because we're already in the planning stages about figuring out what to do in the future. So I'd like to welcome Kim Dickman and Julie Rudolph as our presenters.
Okay, so we will get started talking about students on academic probation, working with them, and a little bit about career counseling. Mostly we're going to be talking about what we do in our office. Kim and I are from Educational Counseling and Disability Services, or ECDS. We're located on the main campus on the 3rd floor of the Star Building. And there's a few different things that we do. And today we're going to talk a lot about some of our workshops. For educational counseling, we're going to tell you quite a bit about our Strategies for Success workshop. Talk a little bit about test anxiety and those workshops that we do with students every semester. We also do a lot of career counseling. We have career counseling workshops, and we have career assessments that anybody can take for free. And they don't have to come to a workshop for that. They can come to us individually. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We also have in our office, we handle disability services and non-degree advising. That's not really the focus of our topic today. We'll talk more about educational counseling and career counseling.
So I want to start you out with talking about just what academic probation is. So have you worked with students on academic probation? Anybody? And when you say, hey, you're on academic probation, I'm a little nervous about it. I don't know if it's just my office. Every once in a while I'll get the student that's like, I don't even know what that is. Anybody? Yeah. And they're like, what? So what we're going to do is take a look at a video that is adorable, I think, to kind of show you that interaction between a student and an advisor and talking about what academic probation is.
How can I help you today?
I tried to register for classes, but the computer says I have a hold on my account. What does that mean?
Let me take a look. Oh, I see. You have been placed on academic probation.
What is academic probation?
It means your grades have fallen below college standards for good standing. You must earn a 2.0, which is a C average, to keep good standing.
But what is wrong with D's? A D is a passing grade.
I understand your frustration. However, the college has set standards for grades. Students who do not meet the standards are placed on probation.
So what happens to me during probation?
You must meet with an academic advisor to discuss your grades and talk about any issues you are having with college. An academic advisor can help you learn to use available student services to improve your grades.
But I do not need any help. I just did not know my grades had to be so good.
Okay. You must still meet with an academic advisor. Only he or she may remove the hold on your account so that you may register for classes.
How do I get off of probation?
Your probation will end when your overall college grade point average rises above a 2.0. This may take more than one semester. You must make at least a 2.0 GPA in your courses next semester to avoid suspension.
Wait. What happens if I do not make a 2.0 GPA next semester?
Suspension.
What is suspension?
It means you cannot attend school for an entire semester.
That would be awful. I must earn my degree quickly so I can find a new job. I hate babysitting.
I understand.
So, to avoid suspension, I must make at least C's this semester.
You must make a C average. For example, if you were to make a B in English, but a D in math, this would average to a C. But remember, you must also bring up your overall college average to be removed from probation.
So, even if I make all C's this semester, I may still be stuck on probation?
Yes. When your current semester's GPA is 2.0 or more, but your overall GPA is not 2.0, you are placed on continued probation until the overall GPA improves.
But, what happens if I take all of my required courses and never make the overall college 2.0 GPA?
Then you will not graduate. You would have to take extra courses to raise your grade point average.
Oh. Where can I find the rules for probation?
In the college catalog. Look in the index for probation.
Does this have any effect on my financial aid? I cannot afford college without financial aid.
Yes. You will need to check with that office as well to determine how you are meeting the standards of academic progress for financial aid.
Okay, I will try to make better grades this semester.
Wonderful. That is a great aspiration.
Thank you.
So, and that's very basic, and that's what we talk about in our offices, and it kind of feels that way, that sort of monotone. The one that that animation company does about Ben Bernanke from the Federal Reserve is hilarious, by the way, but you know, if you like the financial, political stuff. So Ferris also has, we have our policy here, very similar. We need our students to stay above 2.0 for their semesters, and if they don't, they end up on academic probation. Yeah, and so, and then they come and see us to see what's going on and how to get off of probation. Sometimes they are forced to see us. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, what I wondered is, you know, it's really, we never know what gets a student on probation, but we all know that every student is different. And so we listed out some of the reasons how somebody ends up on academic probation. Just adjusting to college. College freshmen have so much to adjust to that grades sometimes end up slipping. Time management, test anxiety. Sometimes folks have medical stuff going on. They do have lives outside of college that can affect whether or not they're going to be able to have a successful semester. They're just not tracking their grades. So there are lots of different things that can happen. And in our office, we do see a lot of students who have disabilities. They've always had, say, dyslexia, learning disability that involves reading. But when they get to college, they're pretty sure they just don't have it anymore. So we have to sometimes have that discussion at the end of their semester when they don't do so well to get their disabilities accommodations up and running. So those are just some of the reasons that folks end up on probation. And Julie's going to start to tell us about how we help students on academic probation.
Now, when a student gets their letter that they're on academic probation, they're probably pretty ashamed, not really excited to come in and talk to their advisor about it. So as an advisor, you're probably going to have to reach out to them. And that can be through an email or a letter. And I just kind of typed up a generic thing that could possibly be sent to a student. Dear so-and-so, welcome back to a new semester. You should have already received a letter from your college telling you about your academic probation status. I'm sending this letter as your academic advisor, extending an invitation to meet with me. Included in your letter from the college is probably a list of different resources on campus, things that you can use to help do better. I can discuss those with you and how you might use them. Your academic success is important to me, and I'm doing everything I can to help you succeed. Let them know that you're not going to beat them up when they come in. Because they're probably scared. They're probably going to come into your office with their tail between their legs. If you can track them down and you can get them to come into your office, then you have a great opportunity to be able to help them. And to do that, you start by simply asking them, what happened? What went wrong last semester? It obviously didn't go to plan. Tell me about that. And they might know exactly what happened. They might know exactly what they did wrong. They might not need any assistance. Maybe they had a death in the family, or they had trouble with one class, but now they know what to do for the future. They might be all set. There's a good chance that they're not all set. There's a good chance that they might need to use some of the resources. And those of you working with students who are on campus have a little bit more of an advantage because we have more resources that are on campus. Off campus, sometimes you need to get a little bit more creative. Might want to get them in touch with if there's resources at the community college that you might be working with. But we have a lot of resources on the Ferris main campus. So through talking with them, it might become obvious what they need. You might know that they need to be referred to disability services. They might talk about a learning disability or something like that. It might become evident that they need the personal counseling center. Very often you'll probably refer to the academic support center if they need tutoring in a particular class. I've heard lots of excuses for not getting tutoring. Well, they don't have tutoring for this particular class. Well, have you gone and have you checked? Because usually they can go to the professor and they can have them recommend someone. They can find you a tutor if you really need one. They also have study skills assistants through the Academic Support Center. So some of the general things that students have problem with, like how to get things stick in their memory, note-taking, test-taking, time management, reading their textbooks. There's some sessions that they can go to on those things. So all of those are good things that you can refer the student to. Or you might have a student that says, you know, I have no idea. I have no idea what went wrong last semester. I studied all the time. I thought I was studying correctly. I asked for help. I went to the tutoring center. I don't know what to do next. And that might be a good time to refer them to our office, to Educational Counseling and Disability Services, because they might be a good candidate for our Strategies for Success workshop.
So I'm going to talk to you about strategies for success and what that is and what we do. And it is oftentimes, when I talk to freshman students, they have never studied a day in their lives. They have no idea what it means to study. They don't know how they learn the best. They've never looked at that. They never had to. But when we're talking about students going into pre-pharmacy, they need to know how to because they will be challenged. So they may not know what they did wrong. Sometimes it's the instructor is tricky. I love that one. The instructor's tricking us. Like the instructor doesn't have time to trick you. And sometimes what that is indicative of is they don't know how to study for the test. They don't know how to work the system of the class. Or they don't know how to work around an instructor even. Sometimes there might be some personality conflict or other kinds of things with an instructor, and they don't know how to work around that. And those are all college level skills, independent skills. So for Strategies for Success, what we do is we have them take a look at how they learn. We have them take two different assessments. One is the FARSH, which takes a look at how they learn the best using their senses. So if they're a visual learner, if they're an auditory learner, so they're better at getting things through their ears. If you have somebody who's better at getting things through their ears, they better be in class, every single class, with an instructor who teaches from the or who tests from the lecture. And we take a look at tactile learners and kinesthetic learners, folks who are very good in laboratory situations or situations where there's a lot of hands-on activities. We also have them take the LASSI, which is an instrument that's designed to take a look at how they're studying right now, what kinds of skills they're using, how they read, how they prep for examinations, if they use note cards, if they highlight a textbook. It takes a look at attitude, motivation, time management, which comes up probably in my office more than 80% of the time. That's the problem. Not carving out enough time to study, and when they are, or they're carving out time to study, but mostly they're playing video games while they're trying to write their papers in their heads, things like that. That one comes up a lot. Attention, concentration, those kinds of things. So, and what we do is what these assessments allow us to do is, allow the students to do is take a look at how they learn and put some numbers to it. It's graphed out, and then we have them come in for a one-on-one session to discuss what's happening with them. Sometimes the other resources are indicated, personal counseling, even just tutoring, things like that. Other kinds of resources can come up in those sessions. Depression, anxiety, all sorts of things can creep in. But a lot more often than not, we get to talk about things like attitude, what's happening with you. And sometimes what happens in those situations is they're not in the right career field. Pharmacy sounds good, it's a lot of money, and that's it. But really they want to, they want to be an artist. And that's quite a big difference. They're also not good at chemistry. That's also sort of telling, isn't it? So we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays, every Tuesday and Thursday from 11 until 12. I have a colleague who's running that session right now today. And we have folks sit in, relax, take the assessments, have them set up an appointment to see a counselor a little later. It's in STAR 322 in a classroom. And we offer that every semester, every major semester. So we would definitely encourage you to have your students come and talk to us if they're just not sure what's happening with them, or if they know they don't study well, or they're just unsure about why they're on probation. One of the handouts you have has a staple through it. It's a 2-page handout, and this is the deliverable for this session. The second page is a checklist. So when a student comes to see us comes to see a counselor, we complete this checklist and send a copy back to their college. So the advisors can have a look at what we went over in their session as we talked about their strategies, results. And this one is just a mock for Joey Kangaroo. And Joey's got a couple of recommendations from our office. And the part that we'd like you to think about is actually that first page. It's just an assignment about what would your plan be for Joey, given that checklist? What would you do? Who would it go to? If you are not officially an advisor, but you wear an advisor's hat often, what would you do with that information? If you are an advisor, how would you follow up with a student, or would you follow up to see? So again, just kind of keeping the student accountable. What we know is that if a student has an anchor, and what I mean by that is somebody who's keeping an eye on them, they tend to do better. If they've got somewhere to go, and they know somebody cares about how they're doing in classes, sometimes that can help them do a lot better. So, but again, what we were one of the things that does come out of those meetings is that we do talk about too is anxiety, particularly test anxiety. And Julie's going to talk to us about the test anxiety workshop that she puts on.
Just like Kim mentioned, I think most of the students that I see that are on academic probation or in some type of academic peril, most of them have some type of time management issue. That's probably the number one thing. I think the number two thing would probably be issues with testing. I see a lot of students who say, I do study. I study quite a bit, but when it comes to the test, I forget it all. And I hear it very commonly. Sometimes it might be a matter of how they are studying, the methods that they're using, how much time they're putting into it. And so we have a little bit of discussion about that, even in the test anxiety workshop. But other times it truly is the anxiety that is hindering them, that's causing them to not remember all of those things that they did properly study. So we've partnered with the Personal Counseling Center because test anxiety is something that touches both our areas of counseling, us from the academic side, and also it's kind of a mental health thing too. So we've partnered with the Personal Counseling Center to do this test anxiety workshop. It's broken up into two parts. The first part is a discussion on how test anxiety is born. How does it occur? Really, it's something that's learned over time. If you have one bad experience with a test, the next time you go in to take a test, whether it's in that class or maybe it's generalized to all tests, you're going to feel a little bit more anxiety. And if that causes you to do worse, then next time you have even more anxiety, and it kind of snowballs. And so that's what we talk about in that first session, and we talk about different ways to break that cycle. How can you start thinking differently about this test? How can you frame it differently in your mind? How can you mentally prepare yourself to do well? And we talk a little bit about test preparation also. Part 2 is relaxation techniques. And that's the part that's done over in the Burkham Health Center. Because when we become anxious, it's not just a mental thing. That's usually where it starts, but that's not usually where it ends. It becomes a physiological thing. When we get stressed or anxious, our body goes into the fight or flight response. So we are ready to charge. We're ready to rescue a baby from a burning building or something like that. What we're not ready to do is to sit down, concentrate, remember things that we've studied, because at that time our brain thinks that that's not important. What's important is to be able to act quickly, to be able to move quickly, not to be able to think deeply. And so that causes a lot of problems with being able to think clearly, being able to differentiate, especially on multiple choice and things like that. So the second session is really about how do you get out of that state of mind, because you can't be both in a relaxed state and in that fight or flight state at the same time. So we try to get the students to relax, to learn how to relax, so that then when they go into that test, they can put themselves back into that state and be able to focus better. You have a flyer. It was one of the handouts. We offer this twice a semester. So the first one is actually next week. Next Tuesday, the 5th, is the first session, and that's going to be in STAR 322. And then on Thursday is the second session over at the Burkham Health Center. And this will be offered again before finals, a couple weeks before finals, when anxiety again gets very high. Okay.
So I'm going to talk to you about anxiety and reduction. And Julie is right. How many of you have noticed a real increase in illness, death in the family for students, or certain kinds of excuses, accidents, things that happen around midterm and finals? How many of you, you don't have to answer that, but how many of you also, if once break hits, about 2 days into break, you don't feel good either? Do you know what I mean? So what we're talking about is that kind of, that's what students feel too. They feel lots of pressure. We live in a society that puts a lot of pressure on examination numbers. So depending on what you get on a certain standardized test, you may or may not get into your field. You may not have a career. You can't get into college. Even just for funding for your high school. I mean, we put a lot of pressure on that. So students coming in and having that kind of pressure on them for test anxiety is not uncommon at all. They individually don't understand what's happening to them, but it's really not uncommon. So what we talk about with them, anxiety is a physiological response, yes. So when you're feeling anxious, can you tell me how that feels? What kinds of physical things, if you don't mind just shouting out? How would it feel if you felt nervous, like if I put you on the spot?
I have memory lapse.
Yeah, your memory's gone. Yeah.
Can't concentrate.
Can't concentrate, that's true. How many of you would say that your heart pounds faster, maybe? Or you might not notice that as much as you're a little sweaty. Like, because your respiration is faster, everything feels a little funny. And then suddenly, yeah, you can't quite remember. So in preparing to give this presentation to you, I just kept running around the room saying, I'm going to throw up, I'm going to pass out, I'm going to throw up, because that's the way that I do public speaking. It's just my way. And that's how I feel. And that's all physiological response to a perceived threat. In and of itself, if I said to you, an exam is a threat, you'd say, well, that's kind of, you're really kind of stretching it there. But in students' minds, like Julie was talking about, over time, when those numbers count for so much for praise, for punishment, for all sorts of things, it gets to feel like a threat, and that physiological response turns on. and it'll turn on. I have taught students, and with much nonchalance at the beginning of a session said, oh, and next Monday, remember, we've got our exam. They go pale, and I lose them for about 5 minutes. Because just that word. So I had a sociology instructor once who said, next week we're getting together, we're gonna go over some questions about what we've been talking about. I don't want you to use your books or anything, but I just wanna see how much you know. And that's how he presented every test to us. And we all were, you know, sort of young and naive enough to go, oh, I don't know what he's talking about, that's the test. But it was a different word.
We're gonna go over questions.
Yeah, we're just gonna talk about what we talked about in class.
Without your book.
And it's just that changing of words that made a big difference in everybody's response. So what we're gonna do, because I know that by working here, you all have experienced stress on occasion or chronically, we're gonna practice some relaxation techniques. So we want you to tell your friends to come next time for food and relaxation techniques, right? That's how we sell this stuff. So what we talk to students about is with the physiological response, particularly in the moment. What's nice about relaxation techniques is it compounds. So if you're doing therapy where you're learning how to relax, you can do it faster and more quickly. You can get to that spot. If you're in a test and you're freaking out, then we start to talk to students about turning their temperature down in the moment. So one of the things that we do is we need to slow down that respiration. Once that's slowed down, the sweating stops, things stop. You cannot be in a very foul mood. You cannot be tired, or I'm sorry, teary. You cannot be have those sort of negative emotions happening if you're relaxed. And I will challenge you to tell me that that's possible to have both at the same time. So what we're going to practice in here is to turn your temperature down and just practice some relaxation. If you fall asleep at this point, then I have done my job, and it's totally okay. But we'll see. So what I'd like you to do, this is the other thing that students talk, when I say relaxation technique, every once in a while I'll get somebody that's, oh, that's Eastern, and I'm not gonna own and get in the lotus position for you. I don't know what you're talking about. That's just embarrassing or whatever. So what I'm gonna teach you today is a relaxation technique that you could do anywhere. And pretty much nobody's going to have any idea what you're doing. And they're certainly not going to think you're doing anything out of the ordinary. So what I'm going to have you do is just start breathing in and out, and I want you to just start noticing your breathing in and out, if you would. You are welcome to close your eyes at this time if you would like to, if that's more comfortable. If not, you don't have to, and you certainly don't have to participate in this either if you're not feeling like it. And as you're just concentrating on your breathing, what I'd like you to do is just slow it down. Slow down that breathing. Breathe all the way in and all the way out. Take your time. We've got plenty of it right now, and I'll keep an eye out for the time. You don't have anything to worry about right now. So you're just concentrating on your breathing, nice and slow, all the way in and all the way out. And what I'd like you to try is to focus your attention on your tongue. What I want you to do is center your tongue in the middle of your mouth without it touching your teeth. if you are having any trouble with that, you'll want to you have to release your bottom jaw to make sure that that tongue stays centered. I just want you to continue to breathe in and out. We're just going to do this for just for a little bit, and I'll let you know when we're done, and we'll talk about how you're feeling. So if you'd like, you can open your eyes. And if you don't mind, if I could just get some comments about how you're feeling right now. Some of you look very sleepy, which is the right direction. Yeah, feeling good? Feeling all right? Feeling like, yeah, I could take my exam. I remember biology. And that's sort of the idea. And we did that for, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes. So when we talk to students about anxiety, the big idea behind test anxiety is you need to be prepared. If you're prepared and still having trouble, then it becomes turning that temperature down. We need to figure out, we just want to know what you know. Take the first minute or two of the test to not do anything while everybody around you is fiddling their papers, and you know how you track people around you when they're turning a page or they're turning their stuff in, and students are like, I'm behind, I'm going to, right? That's what they're thinking of. They're totally spun up. So the idea is turn your temperature down, tell us what you know about the subject, about the material that's in front of you, and move on. So, and the more practice you have with that, by the way, just do that in your offices. Do that in a meeting. And then tell me how it goes. Because nobody will recognize really what you're up to. The other thing about that particular exercise is you keep a lot of stress right up in here. Yes, up in your jaw, along your neck, shoulders, tops of your shoulders. So that's kind of a nice way to just sort of break that up. And it's an easy place to concentrate because you can oftentimes feel the relaxation happening because there's a lot of tension in that particular area. So questions or concerns about that? So those are the kinds of things that we start to talk to students about, so that we can take that initial little layer of pressure off, so we can just get at the root of what they know for their classes, and hopefully that helps their test performance some, if anxiety is their issue. But the other part of it is, you know, for some students, it's not preparation. They don't like what they're doing. They don't like their field, and they just want out. They just need to have a different career. Something that's realistic for them individually, something that is not their parents' idea, something that might not be the biggest money maker, but it's gonna make them happy. And they're just realizing that they can't pull themselves through something that they hate. So the other part of what we do that I think is very important for students who are in that boat, and for students who just are like, I need to be in college, but I have no idea why, is career counseling, and Julie's gonna kind of talk to us about.
The statistics are very interesting. I've seen lots of different statistics, but they're usually somewhere between 50% and 80% of college students change their major at least once. That is, wow, at least half of students coming in, if not pretty close to the majority, will at some point change their major. So what does that say? I mean, I think the average freshman coming in probably hasn't really self-reflected very much about what they want to do or why they want to do it. They go into a major because it's what mom and dad think is a good idea, because they they're going to make a lot of money when they finish, or that there's going to be a lot of jobs out there when they finish. And that's what they seem to be after, more so than what am I really interested in? What do I like taking? What classes do I really enjoy? So you might get the student who's in your office and you notice that, wow, you're in pharmacy, or you're in nursing, or you're in something very science heavy, and all of your lower grades, your C's and D's, tend to be in the sciences. Or maybe somebody's in criminal justice and they fail their intro to criminal justice class. And then it's like, well, if you're failing the classes that are in your major that are really important for what you want to go into, are you sure you're in the right place? And that's where a lot of students might be really struggling. It's very hard to get into a subject that you just don't have a lot of interest in. But you're doing it for what I would probably consider the wrong reasons. So that might be a good time also to refer them to our office, because we do have some free career assessments that they can take. And we'll talk a little bit about those and how those work. Those are available to on and off campus students, but they do need to come to campus to have an individual interpretation appointment. But that can be a 2-hour one-shot appointment. We also have some career choices workshops, and you have a handout for that also. Those are going to be coming up in the weeks before registration, because that is the time that we really see a lot of students coming wanting an individual appointment with us to take the assessments. And so we do have a workshop designed to talk to those students who are starting to think about changing. And what we talk about in there is, why did you pick your major? And if it was something like money or job security or something other than, this is what I'm interested in or this is what I'm good at, we might talk about, well, what are the other ways that you can make money? What are some things that you enjoy doing that might be lucrative for you? Or how can studying what you really love, maybe you really want to be an English major, maybe you really love literature, but you don't know what kind of career that's going to get you into. Well, we can talk about how that would give you transferable skills for lots of different areas when you graduate. So the path isn't always perfectly clear. I think a lot of students like to have a very clear path. I know that I'm in nursing and I'm going to be a nurse. I have it all spelled out for me. There's no questions. A lot of students don't seem to like the ambiguity when it comes to their career. It makes them a little bit nervous, a little unsettled, especially in this economy. So in that workshop, I try to dispel some of the myths about career choices and what you're going to be locked into when you choose a major.
And just to expound a little on what Julie's talking about, sometimes students will come in and we'll talk about what things that they may be interested in, and we'll say things like, well, what about a speech pathologist? I'm like, what is that? They have no idea. They've never heard of that. So career counseling lends some breadth to what students might be thinking about just from where they've grown up or what they've been exposed to. There might be lots of different things that they can do. One of the big benefits I had as a newer counselor on this campus is touring health professions and finding out about all of the different majors that are available to students, and just being very wide-eyed because students don't know about nuclear medicine. I don't know about it. And then suddenly it was, wait, what about nuclear medicine for you? This is the kind of work that you're looking at. So it helps us to have a nice breadth of choices for students sometimes. What we do for career assessments, we have a pre-assessment appointment to get a feel for where a student is at and why they have chosen the career that they have chosen, if that's the case for them, or just to get an idea of who they are in the world and what they like. Every once in a while I have a student who says, when I say, well, what are you looking for? They say 6 figures. That is what I'm looking for, Kim. I will pretty much do anything. That's a different kind of appointment than, I want to be happy. That's what I'm looking for. I want to be happy, but I don't know what makes me happy. So we do, that's part of the pre-assessment appointment. We talk about things like family. Some folks who are 18, 19 years old are very clear about how many people they want in their family, by what age, what kind of spouse, how many dogs, things like this. Other folks have no idea, don't care, very flexible. We talk about travel, if folks want to leave this area, if they will leave the state, if they want to leave the country. Just to get a feel for where their flexibility is like, what kind of person they are, what attracts them, what their character's made of in some cases. We give them directions to take a couple of assessments online. They can do it wherever, in their pajamas at 3 a.m. at home, if they want to. It takes about an hour to complete both of them. And they're based on the students' interests, what they like, and maybe what would be a good environment for them. Then we have them come back for interpretation appointments. They are, like Julie said, they're 2 hours long, depending on the student's schedule and what they feel like. They can split that up into 2 separate 1-hour appointments. And so then we have sort of a basis from which to work. And then we have them come back and we go over their results. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the strong interest inventory, which is a really nice instrument for students to get an idea of who they are as people, as worker people, in their worker lives, what they seem to gravitate to, what kind of worker they are, and then what kinds of occupations will fit for them. It's sort of a funneling effect where we talk about what kind of worker they would be, and then we funnel it right into very specific job areas that might be interesting for them to take a look at. We also use the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is personality inventory that takes a look at preferences for folks. And we're looking a lot at what kind of environment would fit the student's personality. If somebody's quite introverted, they are probably, they're not going to be in, say, marketing. That's probably not going to be their thing, where they're going to have to give a lot of presentations. I had a student who refused to take because she was so afraid of public speaking. There were certain majors she wouldn't even look at, just because of that one phobia. The Myers-Briggs is based on Carl Jung's work with personality. And again, it's more about preference. And if somebody is very introverted, say, or if they're kind of introverted and extroverted, where they're good with people and they're good by themselves. If somebody comes in and they're kind of more balanced among the scales, they're going to fit into a lot of different kinds of work areas. If they're quite one way or another, they might be more geared to be in a profession that's, say, like law enforcement, military, where they're heavy thinkers and heavy sensing folks. Folks that use their 5 senses, they need data, this is the answer, they're very logical, that kind of thing. So we give those out, and every once in a while we'll have students thinking ahead. Students in high school will come in. We had folks come over from Alma, I think, before break, if that's right, just to come in to take the free assessments online. They can do it at where they're at, then they can come over and talk to us one-on-one. We're talking and working, talking about things like doing that by Skype. It's nice to have a face in front of you when you're doing that kind of counseling appointment. So we're trying to figure out how to do that with our distant folks. So that's what we're up to with the career assessment appointment part of it. And then Julie's going to talk about why we do career assessment at all.
And this is important because a lot of students come in and they want to take the assessments because they want it to tell them exactly what they are supposed to do. What does the test say that I should do? And I really try to emphasize the point that these tests are not diagnostic. They are not meant to say this is what you should be doing. They are meant to open up a conversation. That is why they have to come to an interpretation appointment. They have to actually talk to us about the assessments. We don't just give it to them, because it's not like they're just picking something from a list. The strong is good because it gives a lot of options, a lot of great ideas, as Kim was saying, things that they might have never thought of before. What is a speech pathologist? What is a paralegal? And we can talk about those things and give them some general information about them. The MBTI, the Myers-Briggs, is very good at giving the person a better, more in-depth understanding of who they are and how that affects them in the career world. It's not meant to stereotype them. Well, you're an introvert, therefore you can't go into marketing, although that might be a factor to consider, but we can also talk about, well, how will your preferences benefit you in marketing? What can you bring to marketing that maybe the person who typically goes into it wouldn't give? If a student were just looking at this test without having a counselor going over it with them, they probably say, well, I have to look at the things that are very popular for my personality type. But the things that are down here in the least popular, those are out of the question. I can't do those. And that's not really what it's about. It's really about opening up the conversation, using both of the tests, using their own experiences, what they know about themselves, and helping them to come closer to making a decision. So we try to encourage diversity in all different professions. So that being said, I have a great example of what we don't do. This is from Monty Python.
Vocational guidance counselor.
Vocational guidance counselor.
Vocational guidance counselor. Vocational guidance counselor.
Ah, Mr. Anchovy. Do sit down.
Thank you. Take the weight off the feet, eh?
Yes, yes.
Lovely weather for the time of year, I must say.
Enough of this gay banter. And now, Mr. Anchovy, you asked us to advise you which job in life you were best suited for.
That is correct, yes.
Well, I now have the results here of the interviews and the aptitude test that you took last week, and from them we've built up a pretty clear picture of the sort of person that you are. And I think I can say without fear of contradiction that the ideal job for you is chartered accountancy.
But I am a chartered accountant.
Jolly good. Well, back to the office with you then.
No. You don't understand. I've been a chartered accountant for the last 20 years. I want a new job. Something exciting that will let me live.
Well, chartered accountancy is rather exciting, isn't it?
Exciting? No, it's not. It's dull. Dull. My God, it's dull. It's so desperately dull and tedious and stuffy and boring and desperately dull.
Well, yes, Mr. Anchovy, but you see, your report here says that you are an extremely dull person. You see, our experts describe you as an appallingly dull fellow, unimaginative, timid, lacking in initiative, spineless, easily dominated, no sense of humour, tedious company, and irrepressibly drab and awful. And whereas in most professions these would be considerable drawbacks, in chartered accountancy they're a positive boon.
Don't you see, I came here to find a new job, a new life, a new meaning to my existence. Can't you help me?
Well, do you have any idea of what you want to do?
Yes, I have.
What?
Lion taming!
Yes. Of course, it's a bit of a jump, isn't it? I mean, chartered accountancy to lion taming in one go. You don't think it might be better if you worked your way towards lion taming, say via banking?
No,
or...
no, I don't want to wait. At 9 o'clock tomorrow, I want to be in there, taming.
Fine. But do you have any qualifications?
Yes, I've got a hat.
A hat?
Yes, a hat, a lion taming hat, a hat with lion tamer on it. I got it at Harrods, and it lights up saying lion tamer in great big neon letters, so you can tame them after dark when they're less stroppy.
I see.
And you can claim reasonable wear and tear, switch it off during the daytime, claim reasonable wear and tear as allowable professional expenses under paragraph 335B.
Yes, I do follow, Mr. Anchovy, but you see, the snag is, if I now call Mr. Chipperfield and say to him, look here, I've got a 45-year-old chartered accountant with me who wants to become a lion tamer, his first question is not going to be, does he have his own hat? He's going to ask what sort of experience you've had with lions.
Well, I've seen them at the zoo.
Good.
Yes, the brown furry things with short stumpy legs and great long noses. I don't know what the fuss is about. I could tame one of those. They look pretty tame to start with.
And these lions, how high are they?
Well, we're about so high, you know. They don't frighten me at all.
Really? And do these lions eat ants?
Yes, that's right.
Well, Mr. Anchovy, I'm afraid what you've got hold of there is an anteater.
A what?
An anteater, not a lion. You see, a lion is a huge, savage beast, about 5 feet high, 10 feet long, weighing about 400 pounds, running 40 miles an hour, with masses of sharp, pointed teeth and nasty, long, razor-sharp claws that could rip your belly open before you could say Eric Robinson. And they look like this. Time enough, I think, for a piece of wood. The lodge. Now, shall I call Mr. Chipperfield?
No. I think your idea of making the transition to lion taming via easy stages, say via insurance or
banking.
Or banking, yes. Yes, banking, that's a man's life, isn't it? Banking. Travel, excitement, adventure, thrills, decisions affecting people's lives.
Jolly good. Well, shall I put you in touch with the bank?
Yes. Fine. No. Look, big decision. I'd like just a couple of weeks to think about it. I don't want to jump into it too quickly. Or maybe 3 weeks. I could let you know definitely then. I just don't want to make this definite decision. No, not
well,
really
this is just one of the all too many cases on our books of chartered accountancy.
Sometimes I want to, and then I don't.
The only way that we can fight this terrible, debilitating social disease is by informing the general public of its consequences, by showing young people
Perhaps I could do it just for a bit, just for a week, and then
that it's just not worth it. So please give generously to this address, the League for Fighting Chartered Accountancy, 55 Lincoln House, Basil Street, London, SW3.
So that's a clear example of what we don't do. We don't use the test to say you will be a chartered accountant, or this is what your personality is like, so this is what you should go into. We use them as conversation pieces. We use them as a springboard to jump off and start talking about different ideas, what the student maybe hasn't thought about before, about what they might like to do.
And sometimes I think, just to add, with the strong, there are some indicators that are personal style indicators about leadership and risk taking, and whether or not you want to work in groups or you prefer to work on your own, things like that. And sometimes for students, it's been helpful for me if they're very strong in one area. I will say something to the effect of, "You like bossing people around, don't you?" And they'll open right. Okay, it sounds rude, but in the moment, it actually is funny. And it opens them right up, like, "Oh, I do. Yes, I like to be in charge." And that kind of can open them up into thinking about about really honing in on what they need to be doing, and not taking well, I'll just walk slowly, carefully up the ladder, I'm fine. They're going to need to be looking for something that really expounds on their strengths. So when we look at those indicators, if they're very strong in one area or another, what's been helpful as a counselor is just to help point that out to them, just as a self-discovery exercise, as Julie was talking about, to kind of get them to go, you know what, that is me. I really have to be around people. I've had students in my office who score out so strongly as an extrovert, where folks are very happy to be with other people, that they actually study. And what I mean by that is they read their textbook, and they have to be in a room with other people when that happens. They do not talk to other people, but if they are not in a room with other people, they feel uncomfortable. So there's just that people attracted. That's just where they get their energy from. And that's just, for them, it's very normal until I say, that everybody does it that way, don't they? And so when I say, well, that's very indicative of your needing to be with other people. We need to think about jobs for you where you're with other people all the time. They're like, oh yeah, so they get to embrace themselves a little harder and kind of take a microscope to themselves some.
I've never looked at high school records. The question was, have I looked at high school records and these appointments, and test scores. Sometimes I might look at their Ferris transcript, and that might be a conversation about what brought them there. But if a student is really intent on, this is what I'm going to do, even though I struggle, even though I know it's going to be an uphill battle, I try to be realistic with them and let them know that this is going to be kind of difficult for you. You're going to have to work harder than you've probably ever had to work in your life. These science classes are no joke. You're going to have to study around the clock. When we say 2 to 3 hours for every hour that you're in class, it should probably be closer to 3. And if that still doesn't deter them, if they're still like, you know what, I want to put 3 hours in for every hour in class, I want this that badly, then I'm more power to them. You know, I will encourage them. And we do get people who return. That might come for a follow-up appointment, or they might come a year later and they want to take the test again. And they're perfectly welcome to do that. The Myers-Briggs, the results probably come out the same. The Strong might come out a little bit differently. But they might not be ready to hear that they can't do what they really think they want to do. But in another semester, another year, and again, they've spent more time and more money that way. But they have to be ready to hear that. There's no way we can make them. We also see some non-traditional students that might be coming back to school, that maybe lost their job and they want to come back to school, but they've been out of school so long, or you know, maybe a stay-at-home mom who's just coming back to school and it's been so long that she doesn't really remember who she was before then. And so we might get some people in those instances as well. And yeah, like Kim said, it's a little bit different kind of session when it's an older person, but it's very interesting, and usually they bring a lot of insight to it.
We're kind of close to wrapping up. And if you know of students, or if you want to come and see us, or if you want to just hang out in my office between 1 and 2, that's my lunch. We'll do the exercises, like the relaxation stuff. I love doing that. But please let us know if we can help in any way. Happy to answer questions. So there is a little assignment. You are welcome to work on that now if you'd like. You can get it to our office. We'd like it in the next couple of weeks, just a plan for a student who went through strategies. So feel free to work on that. If you have any other questions or concerns, we're going to be hanging out here until 12:30. It's about 12:20 right now. And thank you for your attention and for coming over in the snow and ice.
Yes, thank you. Good turnout today considering the weather.
Nice to see everybody.
Thank you.